Hey friends, before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know about our Seeds of Hope campaign that we are running right now. Seeds of Hope is just such a great way to show support and love for either yourself or a friend or family member who is going through a cancer diagnosis, or surprise mom because Mother's Day is coming up and you want to send her some seeds. So this year, if you donate $65 to survivingbreastcancer.org, we will send you a beautifully curated package of seeds. You can find out more about the program at survivingbreastcancer.org/seeds of hope. So check it out. Thank you so much. Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfang, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. I'm so glad you're here, as I am every single week. Thank you for joining us. Today, I am here with Kacie Flaherty and Joyce Dini, two women who share their experience with diagnosis, treatment decisions, and the emotional reality of living with oligometastatic disease. We talk about what it means to navigate treatment, how relationships change after diagnosis, the mental health impact of living with uncertainty, and the importance of building a life that still feels meaningful. This is a conversation about grief and resilience, but also humor and boundaries and the power of community. So whether you're newly diagnosed, deep in treatment, supporting someone you love, or simply looking for a conversation that brings honesty and hope together, I'm really glad you're here. Welcome to the conversation.
Initially, it seemed like no big deal, right? Like this is going to be a process. You're going to go through this step, just like you expect. And then when they got the scan, we were also doing fertility preservation. And so we were in the midst of all of those extra hormones and doing a scan and then seeing something on the scan and kind of knowing what that meant, going in for a biopsy while still doing the preservation. They saved oocyte December 24th and then called me on December 26th to let me know that I was officially stage 4, which was a pretty tough moment. My family and I cried quite a bit, understanding that all that fertility preservation was now kind of or not. And it was tough. It was not something I would wish on anyone.
Yeah. When did they tell you about the difference between MBC and the extent to which the metastasis has spread, and then understanding the definition of oligometastatic? Since you were just sharing your story, let's start with you.
It was kind of explained to me later on. That first initial appointment with my oncologist, he spoke about, well, you're stage 4, so you're going to go on to this clinical trial and we'll go from there. And I had argued with him. I was like, no, my mom will give me half the liver. I don't need these breasts. Cut it all out. Just take it. And he was resigned that he'd take me to the tour and discuss it there. Then I didn't learn that I was oligometastatic until I had my first appointment with a radiation oncologist who discussed with me what the plan was. There was going to be SBRT after proclamation, and then we were going to go through curative-intent. And he described how oligometastasis was having metastasis one, and how if they had less than 5 spots in that spot or that particular organ, that it was considered an option for curative-intent. And that's what we did.
What was your experience like? So you said also they found the spot on your liver?
I saw my oncologist first on December 23rd, so that Christmas time. It's just terrible, right, Kacie, when it happens then. But I saw her on December 23rd, and she kind of told me at that point I had 2B, I think. But we had done nothing as far as testing. And so my January was test after biopsy after test after biopsy. My doctor told me at that first visit that we're going to do all this. She told me about stage 2. She thought I had stage 3. So she explained stage 3, stage 3B. She said metastatic is, this, but there's this thing in between we call oligometastatic. If you have just a couple of spots, it's very rare, but it's a possibility. We think you're going to be here in 3. So we went through all the tests. By the end of January, I had got my port put in because they decided we were going to treat it as stage 3, early stage. We found out a week before I was ready to start ports in. I'm ready to start chemo, and all of a sudden we find a spot lighting up on my liver. And so that's when she told me, we think that is a possibility that that's a tumor, but we'll start the treatment because we're going to do the early stage, intent for cure, recognizing the fact that at the stage I was at, probably wasn't going to happen. Because the other thing we found is I have 2 tumors, and now we find the spot on the liver. So we got all that going on. We start chemo. 2 days before chemo, I reach up and put a glass away, and I hear this pop. It was like a rubber band pop. My port fractured. So they had, after the first chemo treatment, I got a blood clot. I had a TIA in the doctor's office, had to be rushed on the emergency. And that's why they couldn't test my liver, is because you can't test the liver when you're on blood thinners. So I had to pick mine. I had to go to the hospital every week to get that changed. But anyway, so we went through treatment of the chemo.
Was surgery ever presented as an option for you?
Oh, it is. Yeah. So after chemo, we did a scan, and that spot on the liver was dark. So she said, okay, well, it treated it. And we shrank some of the tumors, but we knew it was never going to get small. We knew it was always going to be this. So then the next step was surgery in July, and then we did radiation. And what's amazing about breast cancer is that I was told in January I'd have 30 radiation treatments. By the time we got to that in September, things had changed. I only needed 15. I didn't need to do it on my right side because it was no benefit. So it was a lot less. And that was great because my liver's over here, and we don't want to. Then when they redid the scans in December, that's when we found the liver spot was lighting up again. We were finally able to biopsy it because I was off of all the blood thinners. And so that was the reason for the delay. And there were lots of delays in my treatment, lots of complications along the way. But yeah, so that's kind of how it all went. But yeah, so then now that it's oligo, we've always kind of thought it was no shock when it came back up. And I think that made it a little easier because you kind of gradually got your brain around it. So I consider myself lucky and blessed that that's the way it went, because it was helpful to digest all of that a lot better. And I have a doctor who's very positive and always explaining things really well, so that I am always aware of what's going on, what the next steps may be. So that helps too.
It's incredibly important. And just a point of clarification too, when you're talking about the receiving of radiation, was the radiation to your breast, not your liver? It was
the lymph nodes in the breast. Yeah,
the lymph
just
nodes
on
in
the
the
left
breast.
side.
Okay.
Yeah. I think actually, if we might do something, we will be doing something to the liver, and they can't do radiation; it's too deep. It will have to be surgery if that's the way we need to go to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
And Kacie was talking a little bit about, how her doctors were presenting her with, curative intent treatment options. Was that similar language that you were receiving, Joyce, as well?
Yeah. It kind of became that curative is not the word that I'm going to really be able to use, but without evidence, a disease is absolutely a term. We're shooting for that by the end of this year. So that's more the real reality I've been presented with, and that's what I would say. She said we're going to treat with chemo and all that for curative intent, but I'm not gonna get there. I've got too much going on.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about treatment decisions and decision making and how you partner with your doctors in terms of figuring out what that right treatment is. They're being the experts, but us being very informed patients of understanding, okay, at the end of the day, these are my choices, my body, my choice, my values and my priorities. Kacie, you mentioned really early on, your doctor was presenting you with a clinical trial option as a first line. Can you tell me a little bit about why perhaps that was presented first?
It was an investigator-initiated trial at the university, so they're always pushing their own trials.
I see.
Happens to fit that option. Unfortunately, my insurance denied my ability to participate in that trial. So that didn't work out. With their presenting me at the tumor board, I was able to get that option for curative. And Joyce, I clarify based on your last comment, it was curative intent in getting me no evidence of disease, but understanding that I would never not be
exactly the same.
So it was,
that's what
we're going to get you here, and then you're going to start the maintenance therapy. And that's what I've been doing since.
Yeah. And how has oligometastatic, I would say, presented itself different in terms of lines of treatment for either of you compared to what we normally hear when someone is diagnosed with metastatic disease, and there's, just these guidelines, and, you're on treatment
So
1
for
until it
me,
doesn't work anymore, and then you go on to line 2, 3, et cetera. Yeah, Joyce, what was
I'm
your...
excited about this one. So I was still, when I finished my radiation, I was still considered early stage. And so we started with anastrozole. And part of my complications is I react to every medication. I've been in the emergency room twice in the past. Well, more than that, but I've been in the emergency room twice because of reactions to medication. And every medication I go on, I react to. And so anastrozole, within like a week, I was just disaster. And so we waited because we knew we were doing the PET scan. My doctor knew that this was probably going to be oligo. I'm pretty sure she did. And so we waited, we stopped the anastrozole. And in January, when I officially then was oligometastatic, the actually blessing of it is that I am now considered metastatic as far as insurance is concerned. So it opens up a whole new ball game of medications. And so for me, the answer of my long-term treatment is the selective estrogen receptor destroyers. And it is a fulvestrant injection. I go every 4 weeks down to Seattle. No, there's construction down there and it takes an hour, and it's going to be a 2-year construction project. But anyway, you go down there and it's a pain in the butt. They give you 2 shots of this really thick fluid, 1 in each butt, and it takes about a week for it to dissipate. But that's the only side effects I have. And for me, that is so rare that a medication gives me less side effects. But because I'm metastatic, that is now a covered item by my insurance. So it changes things. It stinks to have metastatic, but it's changed things for the better as far as insurance is concerned. It's helping me big time.
To hear.
Yeah.
And access to those medications.
Right.
Kacie, what about you? How has your treatment progressions and decisions evolved?
Well, I'll be honest, I got lucky enough to get to NED, and my initial line of maintenance therapy has worked. I'm not certain how that qualifies, whether that's still a first line or whether I'm technically on my second line. And I guess until I have progression, no one's worrying about it.
Yes, perfect. Exactly.
Yeah.
We like that.
Yeah. Well, that brings up another question too around like the mental health component of living with this diagnosis, right? So treatment is working, you both are smiling, you have a plan in place. What does day-to-day look like to you, and how do you manage worry with reality? Kacie, do you want to start?
Sure. Day to day it's a lifestyle change, if I'm being honest. It's not something that I get to forget about. I have to make sure I'm protecting myself both energetically, spiritually, and physically. I still wear masks in public because I can't afford to get sick. If I get sick with the medication I'm on, I'm down for a month, where a healthy person might be down for a couple of days. So mentally, it's not. And there are a lot of things that this diagnosis has taken, opportunities. And we spoke about fertility preservation earlier. I'll never get to have a child. And so that sometimes it's difficult when I see friends hitting those milestones. No way, that's not me. So it's this thing that I will never forget, even though I do have moments where I get to be as normal as possible. But I'm also doing my best to make it not be such a focus. Like, I embrace the ridiculousness. If I can show up and be something memorable, if I can make it memorable, then I'm going to do that, because I want all the stories for when I'm gone to have all my friends look back on and my family look back on, and like, man, she lived in as well as she could despite having metastatic cancer.
It's interesting that, Kacie, I echo so much of what you said. And I think another interesting thing about this interview today, Laura, is the difference in age. I'm a grandma now, so I'm in a totally different place of life. But as far as mentally coming into things, I think in the past 2 weeks, I have finally got to that point where cancer has changed me and cancer is okay. And I'm like, Kacie, my life, everything, I'm thinking about it, but it's not an overwhelming. It's just, I have to be where my husband wants to go to the Mariners game on Sunday, and he wants to sit on the sunny side. And this is all new to us. And I'm like, I can't sit on the sunny side. Why? My skin is really thin. I don't have any estrogen. Do you understand that? He doesn't yet. It's still a learning process for us on how things can happen. So we're going to sit where the shade will come, and I'll go up at the top if it gets too sunny. But I mean, it's stuff like that you always think of. Every night I have to do my lymphedema massage. because otherwise my arm gets sore. So I'm going to bed now a half hour before him. So everything you do gets affected. Coming into my story, listening to a lot of your podcasts, I think I was telling you that Braun did that. I am the CEO of my healthcare, and my healthcare is keeping the joy and Joyce at LLC.
I love that.
That's my motto the whole time. It is. It's like I am in charge of what I can be in charge of. And I need to find out what I need to know. And this week, my hospital is changing their software, and it's hard to get a hold of them because they're going to the software that all the other hospitals in Seattle have. Yay. But I can't contact them. So I've been reaching out to my pharmacist at my insurance, the nurse at my insurance, my mental health person, because I'm on steroids right now and my mental state was a wreck 2 weeks ago. And so I need to work on all these medications I'm on that interact for me, that actually have interactions with their cells. And I've had to go through other sources just because it's easier to find out what I need to know. And I'm making changes, and I've slept through the night for 2 weeks now. And for 2.5 months, I was sleeping 2 hours a night. So, I had to take some control. My doctor's there. She's guiding me. But I had to make my own decisions, too, of what I needed to do for me to get where I need to be. And I think that's what keeps me sane, is that I can control some things.
Yes.
Can't control everything. So control what I can control and recognize what I'm doing to benefit myself because of that control I have and that power I give myself.
I want to take a quick moment and tell you something I'm really excited about. You can now download the survivingbreastcancer.org app directly from the App Store or Google Play. Just search for survivingbreastcancer.org. It is completely free to download, and inside you will have access to all of our support groups, educational programs and webinars, all of our blog content and articles, podcast episodes, and community features to connect with others who understand what you're going through. Everything in one place, because navigating breast cancer shouldn't require 15 open browser tabs. Download the app today. And sometimes easier said than done. I feel like
Yes.
we're constantly trying to grab that tangible. What is that thing that I can control?
Yeah, and there's going to be times where that's going to disappear for a while. It's just, right, Kacie?
Yes.
I'm sure you're like nodding your head like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But we'll enjoy it when we're feeling the power.
You bring up a lot of great topics. And I want to empathize too, Kacie, as someone who was diagnosed also with breast cancer in my 30s and younger, and now living without children. And the option, I guess, I don't know if it was my choice or taken away from me. I haven't kind of grappled with that just yet fully. But there was a period of my life, right, when you're young and you see friends, excelling in their careers and buying houses and starting family planning. Like every single baby announcement was like such a trigger. Like I could not be happy, and I wanted to. And I'm in a much better space now than I was then. But oh man, I couldn't even go down the aisle to buy cute baby stuff for them. It was just so hard. So for any of those friends who are listening, I still love you now. But it's challenging at the time.
I agree 100%. One of my best friends who became pregnant with twins at the age of 39. And she asked me several times if it hurt to be around her. And I said, nope, just one of those is mine.
Yeah.
You're going to do all the hard work. I'm going to come enjoy them. And that's how this is working out.
Yeah.
I'm being honest. Yeah, it worked in that situation, but in others, it hurts. And you just sort of have that moment where you're just like, man, I'm never going to know what it's like to feel a kick inside. But in the same breath, I guess I will always be able to sleep through the night. So I try to balance it out.
Exactly. And that leads to another question around relationships. And I actually kind of appreciate in that you brought up, Joyce, the age difference, right? And so when we think about relationships and describing to someone metastatic, oligometastatic breast cancer, I would be curious, Kacie, when do you decide to disclose your health information to somebody? And has living with MBC changed relationships?
For sure. And I'll be honest, I haven't even tried to date. It just feels like a risk. And as much as it would be their decision, whether they want to stick around, I just haven't given anybody the option. I'll be honest. I'm pretty open with being metastatic as far as creating new friends and connections. I want them to understand why I do some of the things I do. you lose some people. There's some sympathy fatigue, if I'm being honest, where people forget or they expect you, because you are no evidence of disease, to be able to do everything they remember from the old you.
Mm,
And that's just not the case. I mean, I physically can't keep up the way I used to. I have to remind them that I can't get sick, or that I need to do something to protect myself. And that doesn't always align with what they have envisioned of our interactions with each other. I've reduced drinking. I might have 2 or 3 drinks a year, but for the friends who used to, let's split a bottle of wine, they're not used to that. It's already open
mm,
when I get there. And it's like, I can't, you know?
yeah.
And so it makes things a little different in a lot of aspects, but I would say for the most part, people are understanding when I tell them why. I wish I didn't have to remind them so much, but also I love, I guess, that they can forget that I have
Yeah.
cancer for a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Being newer to the diagnosis, I would explain, I have lost a couple friends just because people react differently to cancer. But with my children who are adults, they know pretty much everything because they need to, they should. So we share there. Some of my other extended family members know. Some might find out when they're listening to this podcast, all the details. My parents and my mother-in-law are aging, and it was just this week that I felt comfortable telling them that I have the oligometastatic component. They've just known I've had breast cancer. They live in other states, so it was a FaceTime call, very slow, very carefully, because in that generation, their 80s and 90s, when somebody was diagnosed with cancer, it was a very short time. I remember my aunt, it was just a couple of years. And so it scares them. So you have to be careful how you talk to them. I'm a quilter. I belong to Quilt Guild. And in Seattle here, they say that the breast cancer rate is actually 1 in every 6. We're a little higher and they don't know why. I have found my 1 in every 6. I go to a Quilt Guild meeting, and the ones who have our breast cancer survivors, we have our little conversations. I get resources from them, recommendations. It's a little bond within a beautiful group of people who are amazing and wonderful women. I used to be the young one who could lift the chairs and stack the chairs. I was supposed to coordinate the quilt tour that's coming up in July, but I was diagnosed, so I can't. I am now kind of like some of the older ones. I can't lift the chairs. I won't be able to put the quilts up for the show. I can just be there to talk about. So yeah, it does change a lot of relationships in many, many different ways. And you just cling on to the ones that keep you positive and make you feel good about who you are.
I love that. Relationships, I think, are probably the toughest, seeing that evolve. And I mean, I feel like some of my best friends are in the cancer community because we just get it. We can talk about the ins and the outs. And, I had some local friends, breast cancer friends, over to my house a couple weekends ago. And we literally were talking about estradiol and vaginal health at the dining room table. And I think I went upstairs. I was like, oh, this is the cream I use, literally passing it around. And my poor husband, I'm just like, you know what? But this is what it's like. We just talk about it. And, we're all trying to, as you mentioned, Joyce, share resources or share, what works for me, what works for you. And it's okay if we have a hot flash, or, you have all the layers on and you put the layers back on and off and everything. It's completely different. But to surround yourself with people who just get it without flinching, I think is important.
I have a very, very good friend that I've had for 20 plus years, and she has a chronic illness that has a similar effect on her life that cancer would. And her and I, we called ourselves the Weird Shit Club because she, like me, has had multiple complications. She has her diagnosis is very rare, so the treatment's very unknown. But we talk about things. It's the best relationship because, yeah, we can share all these different things, all this different knowledge, all these different feelings. Our husbands are the same. They're both in the finance world. And so it helps cope a lot to have a really good friend like that to talk about.
And yeah.
Can I say, I've found that the grief that comes with this diagnosis has made me be able to connect with the grief, of other people who have experienced just life-changing events. Like you're saying, Joyce, I've had friends who have lost children, and it's just understanding that amount of grief that will literally never go away. and that whole of how it's changed too. Even though we can't connect on the reason of our grief, we're able to connect on the grief. And that has made conversations easier and understanding that they need grace certain times of the year, just like we do around diagnosis anniversaries and things. It almost makes it easier to help them through that and for them to help me through that as well, because we're cognizant of just how much that affects us. I guess I'd say is one of the silver linings of cancer, if you will.
I agree with you, Kacie. Absolutely. Yeah.
The definition of empathy, right? When we can connect, even if it's not the same experience, but the same emotional connections that really bring those friendships like really deep.
And it does help. It helps me feel better because I know I can help someone that way, that what I'm going through, this icky, crappy stuff, I can give that back to someone else who needs it too. And so it helps you feel better.
To conclude, can I ask you, for someone who is listening to this right now, and whether they're similar to you, Joyce, and recently diagnosed with an oligometastatic disease, or they've been living with it for a number of years like you, Kacie, Joyce, what would you leave them with in terms of anything you wish you had known, moments of hope, mantras, watch out, caution moments, anything you want to share?
My mantra has always been keeping the joy in Joyce. I made little coasters with a heart on it, and I stitched the little, and on the back I put that, because that's the thing I always turn to, is that my goals? I have goals for like 6 goals, and goal number 6 is keep the joy in Joyce by quilting, by being in my garden, by cooking my dinner. And so I think there's all this crappy stuff going on for all of us. There's always somebody who's worse. There's always somebody who's better. But for me, I need to do what I can to keep the joy in Joyce and find those moments to do the things I love that make me feel like who I am as a person, with or without cancer.
Kacie?
Joy, I feel you. I have a little sign on my desk that says joy on purpose.
This was so meant to be. I love it.
Yes. My advice for anyone going through this is that so much of what's about to happen is out of your control. And the things that are in your control are mostly you, but a lot of things are choices, right? So we can decide if we're going to find the bright side of this. We can decide if we're going to have those moments, and you should, I think, have those moments, but like set a timer. So you get 15 minutes of a pity party and then choose to come out of it.
Yeah.
You can choose to be ridiculous and show up with a giant sign at your nephew's baseball game. You can choose to go out and make the most of events. For me, knowing that retirement's statistically not in the cards for me, I'm choosing to take the trips now. I'm choosing to do the things that bring me joy. I'm setting boundaries, which are huge, because I have to protect myself so that I can do the things I want to do, the things that matter to me, the things that bring me joy. Because if my life is going to be short, I've got to cram as much into it as I can, and I'm not going to let anyone else make me do something I don't want to do, because it's my life, it's not theirs. They can do that on their own. So choose yourself, set boundaries, and find your joy where you can.
Beautiful.
Love it, Kacie.
Thank you both for sharing your stories, your experiences navigating this disease, treatment options, relationships, and the realness that you bring. And I'm smiling on this podcast episode. Like, if you're listening, like, I hope you're smiling on the other end, because these ladies are smiling and you guys are bringing the joy. I don't know. You're making me so happy. This was such a great way to start my day. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400 plus programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.